In the snow-swept wilderness of Montana, where winter's silence holds secrets close, a story of unexpected love is about to unfold. Clara Wren, a blind schoolteacher with an iron will, arrives at Aspen Hollow's train station, her dreams of independence, met with empty promises and bitter cold. But fate has other plans. Bo Callahan, a widowed rancher who's made solitude his closest companion, finds himself drawn to the quiet strength of the woman standing alone in the storm. As their paths intertwine at his ranch's one-room schoolhouse, walls built by years of loss begin to crumble. But in a town where whispers travel faster than winter winds and the past casts long shadows, can two wounded souls find the courage to trust again? What happens when the heart sees what the eyes cannot? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The silver locket at Clara's throat grew cold against her skin as the last whistle of the departing train faded into the Montana dusk. Her gloved fingers found its familiar shape, tracing the worn edges that held the only photograph of her parents she'd ever possessed. Though she couldn't see it anymore, she remembered every detail: her mother's gentle smile, her father's proud stance, the way they'd looked at each other like they held all the world's secrets between them. "You always said life's greatest adventures start with a moment of absolute terror, didn't you, Mama?" she whispered, her words disappearing into the swirling snow. The platform boards creaked beneath her feet as she took a careful step forward, her white cane sweeping an arc through the fresh powder. The station master had long since gone home, leaving nothing but the hollow echo of wind whistling through eaves and the distant cry of a winter crow. Clara had expected someone from the school board, perhaps Mrs. Henderson, who had corresponded with her about the teaching position. But as the minutes stretched into an hour, reality settled like frost on her skin. She'd been forgotten, or, worse, abandoned on purpose. The thought straightened her spine. Clara Wren hadn't survived 28 years of people's doubts by crumbling at the first sign of adversity. She adjusted her grip on her leather suitcase, heavy with the few possessions she'd allowed herself to bring. Her mother's old Braille teacher's manual, carefully preserved letters from her students in Boston, and enough determination to fill every page of both. A horse's snort cut through the gathering darkness, followed by the steady crunch of boots on snow. Clara turned toward the sound, noting how the footsteps paused briefly before continuing their approach. Hesitant, but purposeful. "Ma'am," the voice was deep, rough-edged, like weather-worn wood, but with an underlying gentleness that caught her by surprise. "I believe you might be waiting for someone who isn't coming." Clara lifted her chin. "What makes you say that?" "School board meeting ran late. Heard them talking about postponing your arrival until spring on account of the weather." A pause. "Then don't reckon anyone bothered to send you a telegram." The sharp bite of disappointment warred with anger in her chest, but Clara kept her voice steady. "I see. Well, then I suppose I'll need directions to the nearest hotel." The man's boots shifted in the snow. "Aspen Hollow Inn's been closed since autumn. Roof collapse." Another pause, longer this time. "I'm Bo Callahan. I've got a ranch about 3 miles out, past the schoolhouse where you'll be teaching." "Got a spare room that's gathering dust." Clara's fingers tightened on her cane. Pride warred with practicality as the wind picked up, carrying the promise of more snow. "Mr. Callahan, while I appreciate the offer—" "Miss Wren," he interrupted, his voice somehow both gruff and gentle. "I'm not in the habit of leaving anyone out in a Montana winter night, let alone my future neighbor. And something tells me you're not in the habit of accepting charity. So consider it a business arrangement. You can pay room and board once you start drawing your teacher's salary." A smile tugged at her lips despite herself. He'd managed to acknowledge both her independence and her predicament without a hint of pity. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. "Trust your instincts, Clara. Your heart sees what your eyes can't." "Very well, Mr. Callahan. A business arrangement it is." She extended her hand in what she hoped was his direction. His palm met hers, calloused, warm despite the cold, and steady as mountain stone. "Wagons this way. Mind if I carry your bag? I can manage, no doubt, but these platform steps get treacherous after sunset, and I'd rather not explain to the school board how I let their new teacher break her neck before her first day." Clara laughed then, surprising herself with the sound. "When you put it that way, Mr. Callahan, perhaps I'll let you be practical for both of us." As they made their way to his wagon, Clara couldn't help but notice how he matched his pace to hers, neither hovering nor hurrying. Her fingers found the locket again, and for the first time since stepping off the train, its metal felt warm against her skin. Her mother had been right about adventures. Sometimes they did start with terror, but sometimes they started with an unexpected kindness on a snowy night. The brass school bell sat cold and silent in Clara's hands as dawn crept over Aspen Hollow. She'd found it in the schoolhouse's entrance, buried under years of dust and forgotten dreams. Now, standing on the wooden porch of the one-room building, she ran her fingers over its worn surface, reading its history in every dent and groove. "Needs a good polish," Bo said from somewhere to her left. He'd insisted on arriving early to light the stove, though Clara suspected he had other reasons for lingering. "Been quiet since old Mrs. Miller retired 3 years back. Then it's time to wake it up." Clara lifted the bell and rang it, its clear voice echoing across the snow-covered valley. In the distance, a dog barked in response. "Reckon that'll do." There was a smile in Bo's voice. "First students should be along soon. You sure you don't want me to?" "I'm sure, Mr. Callahan." Clara softened her interruption with a smile. "Though I appreciate your concern, I need to do this on my own." He was quiet for a moment, and Clara could sense him weighing his words. "It's not concern, Miss Wren. It's respect. Took courage to come all this way. Takes more to stand your ground." Before Clara could respond, the sound of approaching footsteps crunching through snow announced the arrival of her first students. Multiple sets of boots, accompanied by whispered conversations that died as they drew closer. "Good morning," Clara called out, turning toward the sounds. "I'm Miss Wren, your new teacher. Mama says you can't see." The voice was young, female, and startlingly direct. "How can you teach if you can't see?" "Sarah Jane Matthews," an older voice scolded. "Mind your manners." "It's quite all right, Mrs. Matthews," Clara said, hearing the worry beneath the mother's reprimand. "Sarah Jane asks a fair question. Would you like to help me demonstrate the answer?" Hesitant footsteps approached. Clara held out the brass bell. "Take this, please, Sarah Jane. Now close your eyes and tell me what you notice about it." "It's cold and heavy. There's a crack near the bottom and some scratches. The handle's smooth, like it's been held a lot." "Excellent observations. You just learned something new using only your sense of touch. We all have different ways of understanding the world, Sarah Jane. I may not see with my eyes, but I see with my hands, my ears, and my heart." A moment of silence followed, broken by Sarah Jane's thoughtful voice. "Can you teach me to read like you do? With your fingers? If you'd like to learn Braille, I'd be happy to teach you. And perhaps you can help me by describing the pictures in our science books. Teaching, you see, is about sharing what we know and learning from each other." More footsteps approached as other families arrived. Clara could sense their uncertainty, hear it in the muffled whispers and shuffling feet. She rang the bell again, its voice stronger now, more purposeful. "Welcome to all of you," she announced. "Before we begin, I want to make something clear. I know you have questions, doubts perhaps. That's natural. But in this classroom, we'll learn to look beyond what our eyes tell us to find deeper truths. Now shall we begin?" She heard Bo's quiet departure as the children filed into the schoolhouse, his boots making that distinctive pattern she'd already learned to recognize. The brass bell warmed in her hands as she followed her students inside, its weight a reminder of all the teachers who had stood here before her, facing their own challenges. Throughout that first morning, Clara moved with careful confidence through her lessons, using methods she'd developed over years of teaching in Boston. She had each child introduce themselves, memorizing their voices, noting how Tommy Cooper's words tumbled over each other in excitement, how Mary Beth Wilson spoke so softly she nearly whispered. When noon arrived, Clara rang the bell for lunch. Its sound different now, more triumphant, more alive. As the children spilled out into the yard, Sarah Jane lingered behind. Miss Wren, a small hand touched her arm. I'd told my mama you see just fine. Different than us, but just fine. Clara's throat tightened as she heard the echo of her own mother's words in this child's simple wisdom. She reached for the brass bell, its surface now warm from use and purpose. Just like her heart. Thank you, Sarah Jane, she said softly. That's exactly right. Clara discovered the wooden bird one morning in February, perched on her desk before the students arrived. Her fingers traced its contours. Wings pulled close, head tilted as if listening, each feather carved with delicate precision. A chickadee, she realized, like the ones that sang outside her classroom window every morning. Found some pine wood in my workshop. Beau's voice came from the doorway, gruff with what might have been embarrassment. Thought you might like to know what your morning choir looks like. Clara cradled the carving, noting how the grain of the wood followed the bird's form perfectly. You made this? Been whittling since I was a boy. Helps me think. His boots scraped against the floorboards as he stepped inside. My wife, Catherine, she used to say I did my best talking through my hands. It was the first time he'd mentioned Catherine by name. Clara held the silence carefully, like the bird in her palms, waiting. She taught here too, before he cleared. His throat. Well, before. Is that why you've been helping me? Clara kept her voice gentle, but she needed to know. No. The answer came quick and certain. You earned that on your own merit. Any fool can see how the children have taken to you. Clara smiled at his choice of words. Even a blind one? His low chuckle warmed the room better than the wood stove. Especially a blind one. Way you've got Tommy Cooper reading out loud without stammering, and little Mary Beth answering questions in more than whispers. That's not charity work, Miss Wren. That's pure talent. Clara, she said suddenly. Please call me Clara. After all, you did give me a bird. The floorboards creaked as he shifted. Clara. He said her name like he was testing its weight. Then I suppose you should call me Beau. A companionable quiet settled between them, broken only by the cheerful tapping of the chickadee outside. Clara set the wooden one on her desk, positioning it to face the window where its real counterpart sang. Would you? Beau started, then paused. Would you care to join me for supper tonight? Not as a boarder, but, well, as yourself. Clara's fingers found the carved bird again, drawing strength from its solid presence. I'd like that very much. That evening, over a meal of venison stew and fresh-baked bread, they talked, really, and talked for the first time since she'd arrived. Beau spoke of growing up on the ranch, learning its rhythms from his father. Clara shared stories of teaching in Boston, of the accident that took her parents and her sight when she was 12, of learning to navigate a world of darkness. But it's not really dark, she explained, warming her hands around a cup of coffee. Every person, every place has its own texture, its own sound and scent. Like your ranch, it smells of pine and leather, sounds like creaking wood and distant cattle. It feels steady, safe. Hasn't felt that way to me in a long time, Beau admitted quietly. Not since Catherine passed. 5 years now, but sometimes. The grief feels as fresh as yesterday, Clara finished. I understand. I believe you do. His voice held a note of wonder. You know, Catherine used to say that healing doesn't mean forgetting, means learning to carry the weight differently. Clara thought of the wooden bird, how it sat light in her, hence despite the density of the pine. Your wife sounds like she was very wise. She was. A smile touched his words. She'd have liked you, Clara. Would have appreciated how you see right through people's pretenses, even yours, especially mine. He was quiet for a moment. Been thinking about what you said to Sarah Jane that first day, about different ways. Of seeing, reckon I've spent too long looking at this valley with old eyes. The coffee had grown cold in Clara's cup, but she hardly noticed. Something else was warming her from the inside, something that felt dangerously like hope. When she returned to her room that night, she placed the wooden chickadee on her windowsill. In the morning, she knew it would greet the dawn alongside its living brethren, a reminder that some gifts spoke louder than words, and some connections ran deeper than sight. The town meeting minutes lay spread across Clara's desk, each page filled with carefully recorded words she couldn't read. Sarah Jane sat beside her, small finger tracing along the lines of text, her voice growing tighter with each passage. Motion raised by Mrs. Eleanor Henderson regarding the temporary nature of Miss Wren's appointment. Sarah Jane read slowly. Concerns noted about safety protocols and educational standards. Discussion of more suitable candidates from Helena. Clara's hand found the wooden chickadee, its smooth surface a comfort against her palm. Thank you, Sarah Jane. That's enough for now. But Miss Wren, they're wrong. You're the best teacher we've ever had. Even Tommy's pa said so, and he never likes anything. A knock at the classroom door interrupted them. Clara recognized Beau's distinct pattern, 2 soft taps followed by a firmer one. Sarah Jane, would you mind helping me straighten the readers before you head home? The girl complied, but not before whispering, Mr. Callahan won't let them send you away. He looks at you like my pa looks at ma when she's not watching. Heat rose in Clara's cheeks as Sarah Jane's footsteps skipped toward the bookshelves. Beau's boots crossed the threshold, carrying with them the scent of leather and winter air. Heard about the meeting, he said without preamble. Henderson's been stirring up trouble since you arrived? Clara's fingers traced the edge of the meeting minutes. She has valid concerns. A blind teacher is hardly conventional. Convention. Beau spat the word like it tasted bitter. Convention would have kept half these children at home instead of learning. Convention would have said a woman can't run a ranch alone, like Catherine did when I was laid up with a broken leg. Convention, Miss Wren, is often just fear wearing a respectable hat. Sarah Jane's poorly concealed giggle from the book corner made Clara smile despite herself. Nevertheless, the school board, Beau interrupted, his voice low but intense, needs to see what I saw this morning. Tommy Cooper, reading his composition out loud on the porch, proud as any peacock. Mary Beth Wilson, teaching the younger ones how to make their letters in that sandbox you cleverly set up. Even old Jim Henderson's boy, meanest kid in the valley, before you came, sharing his lunch with little Annie Brooks. Clara swallowed against the tightness in her throat. You saw all that. I see a lot of things, Clara, including how this town's starting to wake up, same as that old brass bell you rang on your first day. His boots shifted on the floorboards. Question is, are you willing to fight for your place here? The wooden bird seemed to warm in her hand, as if lending her its strength. I've never run from a fight, Beau, but this isn't just about me. The children are the very reason you should stay and fight. His voice softened. You've given them something more valuable than reading and arithmetic. You've shown them that limitations are often just lines drawn in sand, waiting to be crossed. Sarah Jane's footsteps approached, punctuating his words. I put all the readers away, Miss Wren, and I organized them by level, like you taught us. Thank you, Sarah Jane. Clara smiled in the girl's direction. Would you tell your mother I'll be attending the next school board meeting? I believe I have some thoughts to share about our educational standards. Yes, Ma'am. The excitement in Sarah Jane's voice was clear. Can I come too? I want to tell them about how you taught us to feel the difference between river rocks and mountain rocks in science class, and how we learned multiplication by dancing the steps, and perhaps, Clara interrupted gently, you could write down all those examples for me. It might help me prepare my presentation. After Sarah Jane had bounded out, her boots thumping eagerly down the schoolhouse steps, Beau's quiet chuckle filled the room. Reckon Eleanor Henderson won't know what hit her. Oh, I suspect she will. Clara stood, gathering the meeting minutes into a neat pile. She'll know exactly what hit her. Convention, wearing a very unconventional hat. Beau's laugh this time was full and deep. Catherine always said the quietest rivers run the deepest. He paused, and Clara heard him step closer. She would have stood with you in this fight. And you, Clara asked softly, where do you stand? His hand found hers, warm and steady as the day he'd first helped her down from his wagon. Right here, Clara, right here. Outside, a chickadee called to its mate, its song echoing across the valley. Clara smiled, thinking of its wooden counterpart standing guard on her windowsill. Some battles, she was learning, were won not with dramatic gestures, but with quiet persistence and unexpected allies. The blizzard descended without warning, turning the familiar path between the schoolhouse and Beau's ranch into a bewildering maze of wind and snow. Clara's cane found only shifting drifts where the packed earth should have been, each step more treacherous than the last. "Clara!" Beau's voice cut through the howling wind. "Take my arm! This storm's getting worse!" For once she didn't argue about needing help. The temperature was dropping rapidly, and even her thick wool coat couldn't keep out the biting cold. She reached out, finding his sleeve solid and steady as always. "The children?" she asked, raising her voice above the wind. "All safely home. Jim Henderson came with his wagon before the worst hit. You're the last one out." They struggled through the deepening snow, the wind driving ice crystals against their faces. Clara lost all sense of direction, trusting completely in Beau's guidance. After what seemed like hours, but was probably only minutes, the wind's pitch changed. They'd reached the ranch house. Inside, warmth from the wood stove enveloped them. Clara stood shivering as Beau moved around the room, his footsteps painting a picture of his actions, stoking the fire, gathering blankets, filling the kettle. "You need to get warm," he said, his voice closer now. Here, something impossibly soft and light settled around her shoulders. Clara's fingers explored the unfamiliar fabric, a shawl, delicately knitted with an intricate pattern she could feel beneath her fingertips. "It was Catherine's," Beau said quietly. "She always said it was like wearing a cloud." Clara's hands stilled on the shawl. "Beau, I couldn't, please." His voice held a mixture of emotions she couldn't quite untangle. "It's been sitting in a chest for 5 years. Catherine would have—" He broke off, then tried again. "She would have wanted it to be useful again, to bring warmth." The kettle's whistle pierced the air, giving them both a moment to collect themselves. Clara listened to Beau preparing tea, the familiar domestic sounds grounding her in this unfamiliar intimacy. "It was a storm like this," he said suddenly, setting a cup in her hands. "The night Catherine died. She'd gone to help birth the miller's baby. I told her to wait until morning, but she said babies don't wait for good weather." His laugh held no humor. "Road washed out on her way back. They found her wagon in the creek bed." Clara cradled the warm tea in one hand, the other still touching the soft shawl. "Is that why you came for me tonight?" "Partly." The floorboards creaked as he settled into what she guessed was his chair by the fire. "But mostly because I couldn't bear the thought of you out there alone." The confession hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. Clara took a sip of tea, gathering her courage. "Tell me about her." For a long moment there was only the sound of the storm and the crackling fire. Then Beau began to speak, his voice soft but clear. "She loved spring best, said it was like the whole world was learning to dance again after winter's long sleep. Used to drag me out to watch the first crocuses break through the snow." As the storm raged outside, Beau shared Catherine with her, not the tragic figure from town gossip, but the real woman who had loved wildflowers and mathematical puzzles, who had taught herself to play the violin, who had laughed at his awkward attempts at romance, and loved him anyway. "She taught me that love isn't about possession," he said finally. "It's about seeing someone clearly, accepting them completely, and helping them become more fully themselves." Clara pulled Catherine's shawl closer, understanding now why Beau had given it to her in this moment. It wasn't just warmth he was offering. It was permission. Permission to exist in this space where Catherine's memory lived. Permission to create something new without erasing what came before. "Thank you," she whispered, meaning far more than the shawl or the shelter from the storm. Clara. His voice was rough with emotion. I think Catherine sent you to us, to this valley, to me. She reached out, finding his hand in the darkness that was no longer dark at all. Perhaps she sent you to me as well. The storm continued through the night, but inside the ranch house, something fragile and new was taking root, nurtured by shared tea, shared stories, and the gentle embrace of a beloved shawl that had finally found its purpose again. The letter arrived on the first truly warm day of spring, when melting snow dripped from the schoolhouse eaves like nature's own music. Clara felt the careful punch marks before Sarah Jane could even explain what she'd created. I practiced all week, Miss Wren, Sarah Jane said, practically bouncing with excitement. Tommy and Mary Beth helped me make the board with nails and a hammer, just like you showed us. And then I remembered what each dot pattern meant, and I wanted to write something special. And shall I read it aloud? Clara asked, her fingers already moving across the carefully made dots. Yes, please. The pride in Sarah Jane's voice was unmistakable. Clara began to read. Dear Miss Wren, thank you for teaching us that there are many ways to see the world. You help us see with our hearts. Love, Sarah Jane. The classroom fell silent. Clara knew the other children were watching, waiting. Her fingers traced the dots again, memorizing this moment. Sarah Jane, she said softly, this is perfect. Would you like to know why? Why, Miss Wren? Because you've done more than learn Braille. You've shown everyone that understanding comes in many forms. Clara smiled, knowing her next words would carry beyond the classroom walls, to where she could hear Mrs. Henderson lingering by the door. Just like how Tommy teaches us all about bird calls, and Mary Beth knows every wildflower by scent, and Billy can tell what the weather will be by how his grandfather's knee feels. A muffled laugh came from the doorway. Mrs. Henderson's voice, usually so brittle with disapproval, held a note of something new. My William does have a gift for weather prediction, gets it from his father's side. Clara turned toward the door. Mrs. Henderson, what a pleasant surprise. We were just discussing different ways of learning. So I heard. Boots clicked across the floorboards as the school board member entered the room properly. Miss Wren, I owe you an apology. A collective gasp rose from the children. Clara kept her expression neutral, though her heart raced. Oh, I've been watching these past months, seeing how the children have flourished. William actually asks to come to school now. Never happened before. And this, there was a rustle of paper as Mrs. Henderson presumably picked up Sarah Jane's Braille letter. This is remarkable. The children are remarkable, Clara corrected gently. I just helped them discover what they already know. Like Mr. Callahan says, Sarah Jane piped up. He told my pa that Miss Wren sees clearer than anybody in the valley, 'cause she looks with her whole self, not just her eyes. Heat rose in Clara's cheeks. She hadn't known Bo had spoken of her that way. Mrs. Henderson's laugh was surprisingly warm. Bo Callahan, turning poet. Things really are changing in this valley. She paused. Speaking of change, Miss Wren, I'd like to make a motion at the next board meeting about making your position permanent. The words hung in the air like the spring thaw, full of promise and possibility. Clara's fingers found Sarah Jane's Braille letter again, drawing strength from its carefully crafted hope. I'd be honored. Mrs. Henderson, though I hope the board understands I have some ideas about expanding our curriculum. Heaven help us all, Mrs. Henderson said, but she was chuckling. Bo warned us you'd start innovating once you felt secure. Said we might as well try to stop the spring grass growing. After Mrs. Henderson left and the children returned to their lessons, Clara sat at her desk, one hand on Sarah Jane's letter, the other touching the wooden chickadee that had migrated from her windowsill to keep watch over her classroom. Outside, real chickadees sang their spring songs, and she could smell the wet earth awakening beneath the melting snow. Later, when Bo came to walk her home, a habit neither of them had bothered to question since the night of the storm, she told him about Mrs. Henderson's visit, about time. he said, offering his arm, even though they both knew she no longer needed guidance on the familiar path. Truth has a way of melting even the coldest hearts, given time. Like spring thaw, she teased, thinking of Mrs. Henderson's comment about his poetic turns. Exactly like spring thaw. His voice softened. Some things can't be rushed, Clara. They need their own season to bloom. She understood he wasn't just talking about her position at the school. Leaning into his steady warmth, Clara smiled, thinking of Sarah Jane's Braille letter waiting on her desk. Some things indeed needed time to find their perfect form. Clara found the newspaper clipping by accident, tucked between the pages of an old ledger she was converting to Braille for her advanced students. Sarah Jane's small gasp told her it was significant before the girl even began to read. Local. Tragedy claims young teacher, Sarah Jane read, her voice hushed. Catherine Callahan, beloved instructor at Aspen Hollow School, lost her life Tuesday night when... She stopped abruptly. Miss Wren, maybe I shouldn't... It's all right. Sarah Jane, please continue. The girl drew a shaky breath. Lost her life Tuesday night when her wagon overturned in Miller's Creek. Mrs. Callahan was returning from attending Martha Miller in childbirth. Sources say her husband, Bo Callahan, had begged her to wait until morning, but she insisted on helping with the difficult delivery. The baby survived. Mrs. Callahan was found downstream at dawn. She was 32. Clara's fingers traced the edge of the brittle paper. Is there more? Yes, ma'am. In a tragic twist, Mr. Callahan was delayed in the search efforts due to injuries sustained while trying to reach the creek in the storm. Witnesses report he had to be physically restrained by neighbors when his broken leg wouldn't allow him to continue searching. Sarah Jane's voice cracked. Oh, Miss Wren. The schoolhouse door opened, bringing with it the scent of spring rain and leather. Bo's familiar footsteps stopped dead at the threshold. Sarah Jane, Clara said gently, would you mind gathering the younger children for their reading circle? We'll continue our Braille lesson tomorrow. Once the girls' footsteps had retreated, Clara held up the newspaper clipping. I'm sorry, we found it in the old ledger. Bo's boots crossed the floor slowly, deliberately, as if each step required conscious effort. Wondered where that had got to. Catherine's mother saved every article about her. Must have slipped it in. Thereafter, he took the clipping from her hands. Paper crinkled, as he presumably read words he'd probably memorized years ago. What the article doesn't say, he continued, his voice rough, is that I heard her wagon go off the road. Was up, waiting, worried about the storm. Heard the crack of wood splitting, the horses screaming. Tried to reach her, but the leg I'd broken that winter hadn't healed right. Couldn't keep my footing on the wet rocks. His breath hitched. I could hear her calling for help, Clara. She was alive down there, and I couldn't... The paper fluttered to the desk as Bo's words failed. Without hesitation, Clara stood and found him, her hands reaching up to frame his face. His cheeks were wet. She knew you were coming, Clara said firmly. She knew you would never stop trying to reach her. That's what matters, Bo. Doesn't. I feel that way some nights. His hands covered hers, holding them against his face like a lifeline. Dreams about it still, about being trapped on that hillside, listening while she was alone in the dark. Clara finished softly. Like I was, after the accident that took my parents, wondering if help would come, if anyone would find me. His hands tightened on hers. Clara, but someone did find me, just like you found Catherine at dawn. We can't change the darkness. They went through, Bo. We can only honor how they lived in the light. A shuddering breath escaped him. Catherine used to say something similar, about how we don't get to choose what happens to us, only how we carry it afterward. She sounds more wise with every story you share. Clara smiled gently. No wonder you wanted to protect me that night in the storm. Wasn't just that. His voice dropped lower, intimate. Think I was protecting myself too, from feeling this much again, from caring whether someone made it home safe in the dark. Clara's heart thundered in her chest. And now, his forehead came to rest against hers. Now I'm done hiding from... The light. Done pretending I don't watch for you every morning. Done acting like my heart doesn't lift at the sound of your voice. Catherine taught me how to love, Clara. But you've taught me how to live again. From the other side of the classroom, a poorly suppressed sniffle revealed that their private moment had an audience. Clara bit back a laugh as Beau straightened, clearing his throat. I believe, she called out, that it's time for our reading circle. As the children shuffled back to their seats, Clara carefully folded the newspaper clipping and placed it in her desk drawer. Some scars needed to be exposed to heal properly, and some hearts, like spring buds, only opened when they were ready for the sun. The blue ribbon felt impossibly light in Clara's hands, its satin surface smooth against her fingertips. Around her, the county fair hummed with life, children laughing, livestock lowing, the sweet scent of carnival treats mixing with summer hay. First place in educational innovation, Mrs. Henderson announced proudly to yet another group of passing fairgoers. Our students created a complete sensory learning exhibition, everything from braille readings to textured map displays. Even got the younger ones teaching visitors how to identify rocks by touch, just like Miss Wren taught them. Our Miss Wren, someone in the crowd corrected, and Clara recognized Jim Henderson's gruff voice. Reckon we're keeping her now. The possessive warmth in his tone made Clara smile. 6 months ago, these same people had questioned whether a blind teacher could manage a classroom. Now they were showing off her methods to the entire county. Miss Wren! Sarah Jane's excited voice cut through the crowd. The band's starting up in the dance pavilion. Ma says they're playing Catherine's favorite song, the one Mr. Callahan told us about in music appreciation. Clara's heart skipped. She hadn't been with Beau since morning, when he'd dropped her off at the fairgrounds. He'd been busy with the livestock judging, but he'd promised to find her later. Think that's my cue. His voice came from behind her, and Clara fought back a shiver at its proximity. May I have this dance, Miss Wren? A hush fell over the nearby crowd. Everyone knew Beau Callahan hadn't danced since Catherine died. Clara could feel the weight of their attention, but it was the weight of hope, not judgment. I don't know the steps, she admitted softly. Never stopped you from teaching anything else. His hand found hers, calloused palm warm against her skin. Besides, I reckon we've been dancing around each other for months now. Might as well make it official. A ripple of appreciative laughter broke the tension. Clara let Beau lead her toward the music, her free hand still clutching the blue ribbon. It's a waltz, he murmured as they reached the dance floor. Nothing fancy. Just follow my lead, like that first night in the storm. His hand settled at her waist, and Clara's world narrowed to the points where they connected. The music wrapped around them, sweet and slow, as Beau guided her into the first steps. Catherine loved this song, he said quietly, for her ears alone. Said it reminded her of how love should feel, gentle but sure, like summer wind through prairie grass. Clara leaned slightly into his strength, trusting him to guide her true. She had a poet's soul, your Catherine. She did. His thumb traced a small circle on her waist. Know what else she had? The ability to see right through my walls, just like someone else I know. They turned slowly, the movement as natural as breathing. Clara could hear the crowd's murmur of approval, could picture the scene they must make, the blind teacher and the widowed rancher finding their way back to joy one step at a time. The ribbons for all of us, you know, she said, thinking of her students' proud faces. The whole town. We all learned to see differently this year. Speaking of seeing differently, Beau's voice held a smile. Heard Jim Henderson telling the county superintendent that his boy William's reading better than ever. Called you a gift to the valley. Clara laughed softly. High praise from a man who once suggested I'd be better suited to basket weaving. Well, you did teach the children to weave those sensing mats for their exhibition. His chest rumbled with quiet laughter, though I don't think that's quite what Jim had in mind. The music shifted, growing sweeter, and Beau drew her closer. Clara could smell hay and sunshine on his shirt, could feel the steady beat of his heart. Clara, he said, his voice dropping lower. "I've been meaning to ask you something." But before he could continue, Sarah Jane's voice rang out. "Miss Wren, the judges want to know if you'll demonstrate the tactile astronomy map for the State Education Board." Beau's soft chuckle brushed her ear. "Duty calls, it seems." "It does." Clara stepped back reluctantly, but kept hold of his hand. "Will you wait for what you wanted to ask?" His fingers squeezed hers. "Waited 5 years to feel this way again. Reckon I can wait a few more hours to say it proper." As Clara made her way back through the crowd, the blue ribbon still in her hand, she could feel the promise of his words wrapping around her heart like a summer breeze through prairie grass. Some dances, she was learning, were worth every careful step. The pressed wildflower lay between the pages of Clara's lesson book, its delicate form preserved in the transition from summer to fall. She'd found it there that morning, tucked alongside a note written in Beau's careful hand, which Sarah Jane had read to her with barely contained excitement. "Save me the last walk home today. There's something I need to show you." Now, as the autumn sun painted the valley in golds and ambers, or so her students had described it during their morning poetry lesson, Clara's fingers traced the dried petals while she waited for the last. "A parent to collect their child. It's a prairie crocus," Mary Beth offered shyly from beside her desk. "First flower of spring, last to be pressed in fall. Ma says they're special because they brave both seasons of change." "Your mother is very wise," Clara smiled, hearing Beau's familiar footsteps on the schoolhouse porch. "Have a good evening." "Mary Beth." After the girl's footsteps faded, Beau entered, bringing with him the crisp scent of autumn air and fresh-cut hay. "Ready for that walk?" Clara carefully returned the pressed flower to its place. "You've had me curious all day." "Sarah." Jane was practically vibrating with the effort of keeping your secret. His low chuckle warmed the cooling air as they stepped outside. "That girl's got more matchmaking spirit than the entire Ladies' Aid Society." He offered his arm, then hesitated. "Mind if we take a different route today? There's something I want you to feel." They turned away from the usual path to his ranch, their boots crunching through fallen leaves. Clara noticed they were walking uphill, the ground growing rockier beneath her feet. "Careful here," Beau murmured, drawing her closer. "Path gets a bit narrow." Finally, they stopped. The wind felt different here, more open, carrying the 1,000 scents of autumn across what must be a considerable distance. "We're on Miller's Ridge," Beau said quietly, looking out over the whole valley. "Sun's just starting to set. Turns everything to fire this time of year. But that's not what I brought you up here to see." He moved behind her, hands gentle on her shoulders. "Feel the wind, how it comes up from the south, carrying warmth from the day. In a minute it'll shift. Happens every sunset up here. Valley wind meeting mountain air. Catherine called it nature's poetry." As if on cue, the breeze changed, bringing with it the cool kiss of mountain snow, mixing with the lingering warmth of the prairie. Clara caught her breath at the beauty of it. "Now listen," Beau continued, his voice soft near her ear. "Hear how the aspens flutter differently when the winds meet? Like they're dancing together, neither one willing to lead or follow, just moving as one." Clara leaned back slightly, feeling the solid strength of him behind her. "Is this where you used to bring Catherine?" "No." His hands tightened gently on her shoulders. "This was her private place. She'd come up here to think, to grade papers, to watch the valley change seasons. Found her journal up here after. She wrote about this spot, about the dancing winds. But I never came here, not until today." Clara turned in his arms, reaching up to touch his face. She felt the tension in his jaw, the slight tremor in his breath. "Why today?" "Because," he said roughly, "Catherine also wrote that if love ever found me again, I should bring her here, to this spot where earth and sky dance together, where change feels like the most natural thing in the world." His hand covered hers, against his cheek. She knew, Clara, somehow she knew that loving again wouldn't mean leaving her memory behind, that it would be like these winds, two different kinds of beautiful, meeting in the same heart. Clara's throat tightened with emotion. Bo, I've been carrying this question since the fair, he whispered, trying to find the perfect way to ask, the right words to tell you how you've taught me to see beauty again, how you've helped me understand that love doesn't divide when you share it, it multiplies. The wind swirled around them, aspen leaves whispering their ancient poetry as Bo drew her closer. Clara Wren, he breathed. I love you, not instead of Catherine, but because she taught me how to love well, and I think she led me. To you, to your quiet strength and gentle wisdom, to your way of seeing the world with your whole heart. His forehead touched hers, and Clara felt the last walls between them crumble like autumn leaves. May I kiss you? He asked softly. Clara answered by lifting her face to his. Their lips met as the winds merged around them, gentle as the pressed prairie crocus in her lesson book, sure as the changing of seasons. When they finally parted, she could feel his smile beneath her fingertips. I love you too, she whispered. Both the man you were with, Catherine, and the man you've become since. All of you. Every season. The official letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, its crisp envelope carrying the seal of the Montana State Board of Education. Clara sat at her desk while Sarah Jane read it aloud, the girl's voice growing increasingly indignant with each word. In response to concerns raised by certain community members regarding the unconventional teaching methods employed at Aspen Hollow School, Sarah Jane read, the State Board will conduct a formal evaluation of the program. Of particular interest are the safety considerations surrounding a visually impaired instructor and the academic rigor of alternative learning techniques. She stopped abruptly. Miss Wren, they can't do this. They just can't. Clara's fingers found the wooden chickadee on her desk, its familiar shape grounding her. They not only can, Sarah Jane, they should. Every school deserves proper oversight. But no buts, Clara smiled gently. We have nothing to hide. In fact, she stood, moving to the shelf where she kept her detailed lesson records. Would you fetch Tommy and Mary Beth? I believe it's time to show the State Board exactly what unconventional looks like. The classroom door opened, bringing with it Bo's distinctive stride and the scent of winter approaching on the wind. Heard about the letter, he said without preamble. Whole town's talking. Mr. Callahan, Sarah Jane burst out. They're saying Miss Wren isn't safe to teach us. You have to do something. Clara heard the soft grunt as Bo presumably lifted Sarah Jane down from her perch on the desk. Think Miss Wren's already doing something, judging by that look on her face. Same look she had at the county fair before she won that blue ribbon. They're not questioning my abilities, Clara said quietly after Sarah Jane had hurried off to find the others. They're questioning my students' safety, and for that, they deserve answers. Bo's boots crossed the floor to her. His hand found hers, warm and sure. You're not facing this alone. I know. She squeezed his fingers, but I need to face it my way. Not as your love, not as the town's pet project, but as a teacher who believes in what she does. Never said, you didn't. His voice held a smile. Just saying you've got an army behind you. Jim Henderson's already riding to Helena to speak to the board himself. Says his Williams reading 3 grades above level now, thanks to your methods. Clara leaned briefly against his shoulder, drawing strength from his solid presence. I never expected this to be easy, you know. Being the first blind teacher in the territory, I just didn't expect it to hurt quite so much. Now that I have so much to lose, Clara, Bo's hand cupped her cheek. You're not losing anything. Not the school, not the town's support, and certainly not me. The door burst open again as Sarah Jane returned with Tommy and Mary Beth. Clara straightened, already forming plans. Children, she said, how would you like to help me prepare a very special demonstration for some important visitors? Over the next hour, Clara outlined her vision. They would transform the schoolhouse into a living testament to their learning methods. Each student would become a teacher, demonstrating how their unconventional techniques had opened new pathways to understanding. Tommy, she instructed, you'll show them how we use bird calls to learn migration patterns and geography. Mary. Beth, you'll demonstrate our botanical taxonomy system using scent and texture. Sarah Jane. I'll teach them Braille. The girls' excitement was palpable, and show them how we made our own simplified slates for practicing. Perfect. Clara smiled, hearing the passion in their voices. We'll invite the whole town to a practice session first. Let them see exactly what their children have achieved. They'll come, Bo said firmly. Every last one of them. Even old Marcus Peterson, who said last spring that no blind teacher who could last a month here. Especially him, Clara laughed. His granddaughter Anne has the highest marks in mathematics thanks to our rhythm counting method. As the children chatted excitedly about their plans, Clara felt Bo's hand slip into hers again. You know what this reminds me of, he murmured. What? Catherine's first year teaching. Board questioned her methods too. Said she spent too much time on nature studies, not enough on rote learning. She invited them to watch her students identify every tree in the valley by leaf shape and bark pattern. His thumb stroked her palm. Reckon she's up there somewhere cheering you on. Clara tilted her face up to his, not caring that the children might see. Then we better give her a good show. The official letter lay forgotten on her desk as they began their preparations. Its threatening formality no match for the energy building. In the classroom, Clara had learned long ago that the best answer to doubt was not anger or fear, but excellence. She would show the state board that sometimes the most conventional wisdom came through unconventional means, and she would do it with the strength of not one, but two remarkable teachers behind her. The ranch deed felt different from other papers. Clara had touched, heavier somehow, its aged parchment carrying the weight of generations. She sat at Bo's kitchen table, running her fingers over the raised seal while he paced the worn floorboards. My father signed this deed in 1873, he said, his boots marking a restless pattern. His father signed it in 1847. Callahans have worked this land for 3 generations, built everything from the ground up, and now you're thinking about the next generation, Clara said softly, understanding flowing between them like winter. Wind through prairie grass. His pacing stopped. Catherine and I, we tried for years, but it wasn't meant to be. After she died, I figured the land would die with me. Felt right, somehow. Like we were meant to be the end of things. Clara waited, knowing there was more. The deed beneath her fingers seemed to pulse with possibility. But lately, he continued, his voice rough with emotion, I've been watching your students, how they come alive when you teach them about the land. How Sarah Jane can identify soil types by touch now. How Tommy understands weather patterns better than men 3 times his age. His boots crossed to her, and he knelt beside her chair. Yesterday, I heard you teaching them about the ranch's natural cycles, the way the creek feeds the south pasture, how the aspen grove protects the winter grazing land. You understand this place, Clara, not just with your mind, but with your heart. Bo, she whispered, but he caught her hand, pressing it against the deed. I'm not asking for an answer today. The state board evaluation is coming up, and I know you need to focus on that, but I want you to know. He took a deep breath. I want you to know that when I look at this land now, I see a future again. I see children learning the ways of it, not just from books, but from feeling it under their feet, sensing its rhythms, like you've taught them to do. Clara's free hand found his face, reading the vulnerability there. Are you asking me what I think you're asking me? I'm asking if you can see it too. Not just a marriage, Clara, but a legacy, teaching not just in the schoolhouse but here on the ranch. Making this place a different kind of classroom, the kind Catherine always dreamed about but never got to create. Tears pricked at Clara's eyes as she remembered the pressed crocus still kept carefully in her lesson book. Catherine's journal, she said suddenly, the one you found on Miller's Ridge. Did she write about this dream? She did. His voice cracked slightly. Said she imagined the ranch becoming a place where children could learn by doing, by touching, by being part of the land itself. Said sometimes the best classroom has no walls at all. Clara stood, pulling him up with her. Show me. Show you what? Everything. The whole ranch. Help me know it the way you do, the way Catherine did. They spent the rest of the afternoon walking. The property, Beau describing every detail, Clara building a map in her mind. He showed her where the spring thaw always broke through first, where the best wildflowers grew, where the bedrock rose so close to the surface you could feel the earth's bones beneath your feet. As the sun began to set, she could feel its warmth. Shifting west, they stood by the creek where they'd first discussed Catherine's memory months ago. "I understand now," Clara said quietly, "why you needed time before showing me the deed. This isn't just about us, is it? It's about honoring what came before while building something new. You always could see right through me." His arms wrapped around her from behind, solid and sure. "When Catherine died, I thought love was something finite, that I'd used up my share. But you taught me that love is more like this land. You can't use it up. It just grows different crops in different seasons." Clara leaned back against him, listening to the creek's song. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes, yes to everything. To marriage, to making this ranch a place of learning, to building a legacy that honors both our dreams and Catherine's." She turned in his arms. "But first, we have a state board to convince." His laugh rumbled through both their bodies. "Reckon they won't know what hit them. Between your teaching methods and this land's wisdom, we'll show them education isn't just about what you can see on paper." "No," Clara smiled, thinking of the deed that had started this conversation. "Sometimes it's about what you can feel in your heart." Above them, an evening bird called out, one of Tommy's beloved chickadees, singing its vespers to the dying day. Clara held tighter to Beau, feeling in her bones that this was right. Some trust falls required letting go, but others, like this one, meant holding on with all your strength. The Christmas ornament was a simple thing. A clear glass ball filled with prairie grass seeds and tiny dried flowers wrapped with a thin copper wire that Sarah Jane had helped twist into the shape of a heart. Clara held it carefully as she sat by the fire in Beau's living room, the warmth of the flames mixing with the scent of pine from the freshly cut Christmas tree. "Catherine started the tradition," Beau explained, his voice soft with memory. "An ornament made from something found on the ranch, added each Christmas. Said it was a way of bringing the land inside during the dark months." Clara's fingers traced the copper heart. "Tell me about the others." She heard him move to the tree, glass tinkling gently as he touched each ornament. "This one's from our first Christmas, pine needles and creek stones in a mason jar lid. This one's wheat heads, tied with blue ribbon from the summer fair. This," he paused, "this was her last one. Aspen leaves pressed between glass, still gold as sunset." "They're beautiful," Clara said, meaning far more than the ornaments. "Thank you for sharing them with me." "Been thinking about what you said last week," he replied, settling beside her on the sofa. "About how remembering doesn't mean standing. Still, reckon it's time these ornaments had some new stories to tell." Outside, snow fell softly. She could hear its hushed whisper against the windows, so different from the bitter storm that had brought her to his door exactly 1 year ago. So much had changed since then, yet some things remained constant. The solid warmth of his presence, the quiet strength of his love. "The state board arrives tomorrow," she reminded him, though she knew he hadn't forgotten. Their final evaluation would take place the day before Christmas break. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. "Got the whole town ready. Jim Henderson's boy William practiced his presentation 3 times at dinner last night, according to his ma. And Mary Beth's mother says she hasn't seen the girl so excited since she won the spelling bee." Clara smiled, remembering the afternoon she'd spent helping her students prepare. They'd transformed the schoolhouse into a celebration of all they'd learned, tables set up with their tactile maps and botanical collections, walls lined with their Braille stories and mathematical models. "Did I tell you what Sarah Jane's planning?" she asked, leaning into his shoulder. "She's created a whole demonstration about how different trees make different sounds in the wind. Says she got the idea from you, talking about the aspens on Miller's Ridge. His chest rumbled with quiet laughter. That girl's got a way of weaving everything together, doesn't she? Rather like her teacher. Rather like someone else I know, Clara countered, thinking of how naturally Bo had helped her blend her teaching methods with the ranch's wisdom. Speaking of weaving things together, she lifted the ornament she held. Where shall we hang? This one? He took it gently, then guided her hand to a spot on the tree, right here next to Catherine's last one. Think she'd like that? The old and new side by side, catching the same light. As they stepped back, Clara caught the faint sound of horses approaching. Someone's coming. That'll be the children, Bo said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. Might have invited them for a Christmas Eve surprise. The door burst open, bringing with it swirls of cold air and the chatter of excited voices. "Miss Wren," Sarah Jane called out. "Mr. Callahan said we could help decorate the schoolhouse for tomorrow, and he's got sleigh bells for the horses, so the board members can hear them coming like we do." Clara felt Bo's hand squeeze hers as the children filled the room with their energy and questions. This, she realized, was what Catherine must have dreamed of. The ranch house alive with young voices, learning and celebration weaving together as naturally as copper wire around prairie grass. "You know what this reminds me of?" Bo murmured in her ear as they listened to the children exclaiming over the ornaments. "That first day you rang the school bell. Same feeling of something waking up, coming back to life." Clara touched the ornament they'd just hung, feeling its perfect roundness, the careful balance of seeds within. "Some things have to sleep through winter to bloom in spring," she said softly. "Catherine taught you that, and now we're teaching it to them." His kiss brushed her temple as Mary Beth began organizing the other children into decorating teams. Tomorrow would bring its challenges with the state board, but tonight was for celebrating how far they'd come. All of them, together. Like the seeds in the ornament, they were carrying summer's promise through winter's dark, knowing that the most beautiful gardens often grew from the deepest snows. The engagement ring nestled in Bo's pocket felt like a burning coal against his leg. As he watched the state board members file into the schoolhouse, Clara stood at her desk, calm as mountain stone, while her students took their practice positions. The morning sun caught the copper wire heart on their Christmas ornament, sending light dancing across the walls. "Ladies and gentlemen," Clara began, her voice clear and strong. "Welcome to Aspen Hollow School. Today, my students would like to show you how we've redefined what it means to see." What followed was nothing short of miraculous. Tommy Cooper, once too shy to speak above a whisper, confidently led board members through their scientific methodology of identifying bird species by call and wing pattern. Mary Beth demonstrated their botanical classification system, showing how blindfolded students could identify plants by texture and scent more accurately than seeing students using traditional methods. "Remarkable," murmured the board chairman, removing his blindfold. "And their test scores have improved consistently," Mrs. Henderson interjected, producing a leather folder of records. "Particularly in natural sciences and mathematics. Our students are averaging 2 grade levels above territory standards." Sarah Jane stepped forward then, her voice steady. "Miss Wren taught us that everyone sees differently. Like how Mr. Callahan can tell a storm's coming by how the horses act, or how my grandpa knows spring's arriving by how his joints feel." She gestured to the braille displays lining the walls. "We're not just learning facts. We're learning how to understand the world with everything we have." Clara's hands clasped together as her star pupil continued. "When Miss Wren first came, some folks said a blind teacher couldn't keep us safe. But she's taught us that real safety comes from understanding, not fear. She can hear trouble coming before we see it, feels changes in the weather before they happen. She knows each of us by our footsteps, our voices, our hearts." Bo watched the board members exchange glances, saw something shift in their expressions. Then William Henderson, usually so reserved, raised his hand. "May I show them the astronomy map, Miss Wren?" Clara nodded, and William unveiled their latest project, a raised relief map of the night sky, with constellations marked in copper wire and glass beads. "We made it so everyone can see the stars," he explained. "Even on cloudy nights. Even—" With their eyes closed, the chairman cleared his throat. "Miss Wren, I must admit, when we received the initial complaints, we had concerns. But seeing these results, these methods—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "You've done more than teach, despite your blindness. You've taught because of it. Shown these children ways of learning we never considered. That's what Catherine always said education should be." Beau found himself speaking up. All eyes turned to him, including Clara's, unerringly finding his position by the window. "My late wife taught here too. Said real teaching isn't about showing children what to see, but helping them discover new ways of seeing for themselves." Clara's smile was radiant as the chairman nodded decisively. "Well, I believe we've seen everything we need to. Miss Wren, would you step outside with us briefly?" As Clara followed the board members out, her students clustered around Beau. "Did we do good, Mr. Callahan?" Sarah Jane whispered. "You did better than good," he assured them, the ring in his pocket somehow lighter now. "You showed them the truth." When Clara returned a few minutes later, her cheeks were flushed with joy. "They're not just approving our methods," she announced. "They're recommending them for other schools, want us to train teachers from across the territory." The classroom erupted in cheers. As the children celebrated, Beau crossed to Clara's side. "Seems like a good moment for another decision," he said softly, taking her hand. The room fell silent as he knelt, drawing out the ring. A simple gold band set with a small pearl. "Catherine's mother gave me this last week," he explained. "Said it was her grandmother's, then Catherine's, and now it should be yours. If you'll have it." Clara's free hand found his face, reading the emotion there. "Are you asking me something, Beau Callahan?" "Asking if you'll marry me. Help me turn this ranch into the school we've dreamed of. Show our children, all our children, how to see the world with their whole hearts." "The pearl," she said softly, fingers finding the ring. "It's smooth like river stones after rain, like new beginnings." He agreed. Clara smiled, tears catching the morning light. "Yes," she whispered, "to everything. Yes." As cheers erupted again, Beau slipped the ring onto her finger. Outside, snow began to fall. He could see it through the window where their Christmas ornament hung, copper heart gleaming. Behind the glass prairie seeds waited for spring, just as their future waited to bloom. The wedding invitation lay on Clara's desk, its raised lettering a blend of traditional type and braille, Sarah Jane's idea, naturally. Clara's fingers traced the words, while her students bustled around the schoolhouse, transforming it for tomorrow's ceremony. "Join us where winter melts into spring," Mary Beth read aloud, "as two teachers of life's greatest lessons combine their classrooms forever." She sighed dreamily. "Miss Wren, it's the most beautiful invitation I've ever seen." "That's because you helped design it," Clara smiled, hearing the pride in her student's voice. The whole town had pitched in for the wedding preparations, turning it into an impromptu lesson in community and collaboration. Mrs. Henderson's voice carried from outside, where she was directing the flower arrangements. "The prairie crocuses are perfect this year, almost like they knew we'd need them." Catherine would have loved it. The mention of Catherine no longer brought sadness to Clara's heart. Instead, she felt a warm gratitude, remembering the journal entry Beau had shared with her last night. "I hope whoever follows after me," Catherine had written, "loves this valley not just for its beauty, but for its lessons, the way it teaches us that life, like seasons, doesn't end with winter, it just gathers strength for spring." Miss Wren. Sarah Jane's footsteps approached, accompanied by the subtle fragrance of wildflowers. "We finished the archway like you described, used copper wire to weave the flowers together, just like our Christmas ornament. And Tommy's father helped us attach little bells so you can hear it singing in the wind." Clara stood, holding out her hand. "Show me." Sarah Jane led her outside, where the April air danced with promise. Under her exploring fingers, the archway revealed itself, a perfect blend of nature and craftsmanship. Delicate bells chimed as she touched them, each one carefully placed to create a melody of movement. "The whole valley's coming," Tommy announced proudly, from somewhere to her left. Even old Marcus Peterson cancelled his trip to Helena. "Says he wouldn't miss seeing his best math student get married," Clara laughed. "I'm sure his granddaughter Anne's perfect test scores had nothing to do with that decision." Speaking of decisions, Mrs. Henderson called out, "Your groom's coming up the path, and he's not supposed to see anything before tomorrow. Sarah Jane, run interference." Clara heard her star pupil dash off, her voice carrying clearly, "Mr. Callahan!" "You know the rules." Beau's deep chuckle rolled across the schoolyard. "Can't a man check on his bride-to-be?" "Not when we're decorating," Sarah Jane declared. "Besides, Miss Wren's mother's dress just arrived from Boston, and it's bad luck if—" "You see it before tomorrow." Clara's hand flew to her throat, where her mother's locket rested. The dress had been carefully packed away since the accident, preserved by loving hands until Clara might need it. She hadn't been sure it would arrive in time. "The dress is here," she whispered. Mary Beth touched her arm gently. "Mrs. Henderson and my mother are pressing it now. They say it's like starlight on snow, all silk and tiny pearls, and look what else came with it." She pressed something into Clara's hands, a small fabric-wrapped package. Clara's fingers found a note pinned to it, and Sarah Jane, who had successfully turned Beau away, hurried back to read it. "Dear Clara," she read, "this arrived at the Boston School for the Blind last week. Addressed to you from Catherine Callahan's mother." The note with it said, "For the next teacher who sees with her heart." With trembling fingers, Clara unwrapped the package. Inside lay a delicate lace veil, lovingly preserved. Mrs. Henderson gasped softly. "That's Catherine's veil," she said. "The one her grandmother made with wildflowers embroidered along the edge. She always said it would be for the next love story this valley would tell," Clara finished quietly, remembering Beau's words about Catherine's mother's visit. The older woman had welcomed her with open arms, saying she'd known, somehow, that Catherine had helped guide. This healing, Sarah Jane's small hand covered hers on the veil. "It's perfect, Miss Wren. Like the whole thing was meant to be. The whole thing was meant to be a secret until tomorrow." Beau's voice came from further down the path, warm with laughter. "But I reckon I can wait one more day to see it all come together." "Good!" Clara called back, her heart full to bursting, "because your students have outdone themselves with the preparations." "Our students," he corrected gently. "Our valley. Our story." As Beau's footsteps faded away, Clara carefully folded the veil, thinking of all the love it represented. Not just hers and Beau's, but Catherine's, their families, the town's, and most of all, their students. Tomorrow, under an archway of copper and flowers, they would begin a new chapter. But today, in this moment, she could feel the pages of past and future turning together, creating something beautiful and whole. The acceptance letter arrived 3 months after the wedding, its official seal and formal language carrying the weight of unexpected choice. Clara sat in their kitchen, still such a new and precious phrase, while Beau read it aloud, his voice carefully neutral. "Dear Mrs. Callahan, the National Institute for Innovative Education is pleased to offer you the position of head instructor at our new teacher training facility in Boston. Your groundbreaking methods of sensory-based learning have captured our attention, and we believe you are uniquely qualified to shape the future of education for students with visual impairments." Clara's fingers found her mother's locket, then drifted to Catherine's veil, now framed in a shadow box on their wall. The copper wire heart from their Christmas ornament had been worked into the frame's design, connecting past and present. "There's more," Beau continued. "The position includes funding for a full teaching staff and resources to implement your methodology on a national scale. Your work could help thousands of children who currently have limited educational opportunities." The kitchen fell silent, except for the gentle tick of Catherine's old clock and the distant song of chickadees, Tommies, beloved birds, still faithful to their schoolhouse perch. "It's an incredible opportunity," Clara said finally, hearing the careful way Beau set the letter down. "It is." His chair scraped back, boots moving to the window. "Could help a lot of children. Beau, you should take it." His voice was rough, with emotion. Catherine always said education was about reaching as many hearts as possible. This would be your chance to do that. Clara stood, moving unerringly to his side. Her hands found his face, reading the tension there. "Do you remember?" What else Catherine wrote in her journal? About how sometimes the deepest teaching happens in the smallest spaces. His hands covered hers. "This is different. This is national recognition, Clara. A chance to change lives across the country." "I am changing lives," she said softly. "Right? Here every day." "But let me finish," she smiled, feeling his stubborn protest subside. "Yesterday, Sarah Jane taught the younger children how to read weather patterns by touch and sound. Tommy's working with the Miller twins on his bird identification system. Mary Beth has 3 other schools interested in our botanical learning methods." She felt him shift, listening. "And this morning," she continued, "William Henderson rode out to tell us his father's arranged for teachers from 6 different territories to visit next month. They want to learn our methods, see how we've integrated the ranch into our teaching. Clara." His voice held a warning. "Don't make this decision because of me, or the ranch, or even the children. This is your future we're talking about." "No," she said firmly. "This is our future. The one we're building together, the one Catherine dreamed of. A place where education doesn't just happen in classrooms, but in every breath of wind, every handful of earth, every moment of discovery." She felt his resistance wavering. "You're sure? Boston's where you started, where your family—" "My family is here now." Her hand found his heart. "In this valley, in our students, in you. Besides," she smiled, "how could I leave when we're just about to expand the school?" His breath caught. "What?" "Sarah Jane's father offered us the old Cooper property next to the schoolhouse. Says if we're going to be training teachers from across the territory, we might as well do it properly." She paused, letting her next words sink in. "It has a perfect south-facing slope, like the one where Catherine used to teach her outdoor classes." Beau's arms wrapped around her, pulling her close. "You've known about this offer for a while, haven't you? Since before the acceptance letter arrived." She nestled into his embrace. "Was waiting for the right moment to tell you. Wanted you to see that our dreams are already growing here, taking root like spring crocuses through winter snow." His laugh rumbled through both their bodies. "Using my own metaphors against me, Mrs. Callahan? Learning from the best teacher." "I know, Mr. Callahan." He kissed her then, soft and sure, tasting of coffee and promise. When they parted, Clara could feel the tension had left his body. "Want me to write the reply to Boston?" he asked. "No," she smiled. "I'll write it myself. In Braille, with a note explaining that while I'm honored by their offer, I'm already where I need to be, teaching not just with my mind or my methods, but with my whole heart." Outside, the spring wind carried the sound of approaching horses. There, afternoon students right on time. Clara touched the letter one last time, feeling no regret, only certainty. Some opportunities looked grand on paper, but the grandest opportunities of all were sometimes the ones that grew quietly, taking root in fertile soil, nurtured by love and understanding. The house keys were warm in Clara's palm as she stood on the porch of the newly renovated Cooper property. 3 keys, one for the main door, one for the library they'd created in the old parlor, and one for Catherine's greenhouse, rebuilt exactly as it had been in Beau's memories, but with raised markers along the plant beds so students could navigate by touch. "It's perfect," Sarah Jane declared, practically bouncing beside her. "Wait until you feel what we did with the library shelves, Miss Wren. I mean Mrs. Callahan. Every book has a Braille marker, and we arranged them in sections, just like you taught us, with texture coding for different subjects." Clara smiled. At the girl's continued struggle with her new name. It will always be Miss Wren in the classroom, Sarah Jane. Some things don't need to change, but some things do. Bo's voice came from behind them, accompanied by the sound of wagon wheels. Like our first group of visiting teachers arriving early. Clara turned toward the approaching sounds, hearing multiple horses and excited voices. The Territorial Education Board had sent not 6 teachers as promised, but 15, all eager to learn their methods. "Welcome to Callahan School of Integrated Learning," she called out, using the new name for the first time. It had been Mrs. Henderson's suggestion, a way to honor both Catherine's memory and their shared vision. "Mrs. Callahan," a young woman's voice bright with enthusiasm. "I'm Emily Parker from Idaho Territory. I've been corresponding with Sarah Jane about your botanical identification methods. She says you've developed a way to teach plant families, entirely by touch and scent." "Indeed we have," Clara smiled, unlocking the greenhouse door. "But first, I believe Sarah Jane has prepared a demonstration of how we begin each day." Sarah Jane, her star pupil, stepped forward confidently. "If everyone would form a circle, we'll start with our morning awareness exercise. Close your eyes, and please, yes, all of you. Now feel the wind on your face. What direction is it coming from? What does it tell you about today's weather?" Clara moved among the visiting teachers as Sarah Jane led them through the exercise, hearing their murmurs of surprise as they began to notice things they'd never paid attention to before. Bo's hand found hers, squeezing gently. "Catherine would have loved this," he whispered. "Educators learning to see with their whole selves." Before Clara could respond, William Henderson's voice carried from the road. "Wagon coming from Miller's Creek, bringing the new science equipment." The past month had been a whirlwind of preparation and innovation. Word of their methods had spread beyond the territories, bringing not just teachers but donations, equipment, books, and resources from schools across the country. Even the Boston Institute that had offered Clara the position had sent their support in the form of specialized teaching tools and a promise of ongoing collaboration. "Mrs. Callahan?" Emily Parker again. "Sarah Jane mentioned something about using music to teach mathematics?" "Ah, yes." Clara smiled, unlocking the main door. "Tommy, would you demonstrate our rhythm counting method? Mary Beth, the multiplication dance, if you please." As her students began showing the visiting teachers how movement and music could make numbers come alive, Clara felt Bo slip away toward the greenhouse. She followed him, finding him in front of Catherine's favorite rosemary plant, one they'd propagated from a cutting preserved by her mother. "Having second thoughts?" she asked softly, hearing the way his breathing had changed. "The opposite." His voice was thick with emotion, remembering something Catherine wrote in her journal about how she dreamed of turning this valley into a place where education broke free of walls and limitations. "Never thought I'd see it happen, let alone be part of it." Clara reached up, touching his face. "We're all part of it. Catherine laid the foundation with her dreams. You kept them safe until the time was right. Our students showed us how to build on them, and now we're teaching teachers to see differently." He gathered her close. "You know, when you first arrived at that train station, I thought I was just offering shelter from a storm. Had no idea you'd teach us all how to dance." In the rain, from inside the main house, came the sound of laughter as the multiplication dance apparently went awry. Clara smiled against Bo's chest. "Speaking of dancing, I believe we promised to show them how we teach geography through movement." "In a minute," he murmured, holding her closer. "Just want to feel this moment, the way Catherine taught me to, with my whole heart." Clara's fingers found the keys in her pocket, touching each one like a prayer of gratitude. Some doors, once opened, led to places bigger than anyone could imagine, and some truths, like the one they'd built here, felt exactly like coming home. Tucker, family portrait, hung in the train station's newly renovated waiting room, though Clara had never seen it. Sarah Jane described it to her one spring morning, exactly 2 years after that first snowy arrival that had changed everything. "You're sitting in Catherine's old teaching chair," Sarah Jane explained, "with Mr. Callahan standing behind you. He's got his hand on your shoulder, right next to where you're wearing the locket. And all around you are the students, not just our class, but the new ones too. Even the visiting teachers wanted to be in it." Clara touched her mother's locket, then the smooth gold of her wedding ring, and Catherine's picture. "Right there on the wall behind you all, watching over everything, just like she still does." The station door opened, bringing with it Beau's familiar stride and the sound of approaching horses. "Train's coming," he announced, "bringing 3 more teachers from back east, and this time," Clara smiled, "someone will be here to meet them." She stood, smoothing her skirts, feeling the slight roundness of her belly that only Beau knew about so far. New life, new beginnings, always growing, just like Catherine had written. "Miss Wren?" Sarah Jane's voice held a hint of tears. "I mean, Mrs. Callahan, I've been accepted to the Teachers' College in Helena. They want me to show them how to set up a whole department for sensory learning." Clara opened her arms, and her star pupil flew into them. "Catherine once wrote that the best teachers are the ones who learn to see with their students' eyes," she said softly. "You've been teaching me that since the day we met." "We all have," Beau added, his voice warm. "Been learning to see this valley new, through each other's hearts." The train whistle sounded in the distance, and Clara could hear the townspeople gathering, coming to welcome the newest arrivals, just as they'd eventually welcomed her. Mrs. Henderson was organizing welcome baskets. Jim Henderson was ready, with his wagon, and if she wasn't mistaken, that was Mary Beth setting up her botanical demonstration on the platform. "Ready?" Beau asked, offering his arm. Clara took it, feeling the strength that had supported her through every step of this journey. "Ready." As the train approached, she thought of another arrival, another winter day, and all the seasons of change that had followed. She thought of Catherine's dreams taking root in fertile soil, of love that grew stronger through loss, of students becoming teachers of their own unique vision. The train's brakes hissed to a stop, and Clara straightened her shoulders, smiling as Sarah Jane took her other arm. Together, they stepped forward to welcome the next chapter of their ever-growing story. Behind them, in the waiting room, the family portrait watched over it all, a testament to how love, like education, knows no boundaries. And in the distance, a chickadee sang its spring song, reminding them that the most beautiful journeys often begin with a single moment of trust in the heart of a Montana winter.